In firefighting and public safety, reliability is key. For over 20 years, the Fire Store has equipped first responders with trusted gear featuring brands like MSA Carnes for helmets and Seek for thermal imaging cameras. Stay prepared. Visit thefirestore.com today. The Fire Store, your trusted safety partner.
This podcast is brought to you by Flex 7 from Tenkata Protective Fabrics. Flexible, comfortable, and powered with the strength of enforced technology. Flex 7 outer shell fabric is made to move. To learn more, visit tenkatafabrics.com/Flex 7.
Breathing in diesel exhaust fumes is like walking into a fire without a mask. Over time, those toxins lead to cancer. Protect yourself with MagnaGrip, the easiest, most reliable exhaust removal system that features a true 100% seal to eliminate diesel exhaust fumes. To get free grant assistance, visit magnagrip.com.
Welcome to the Backstep, everybody. I'm Ronnie K. in New York. This is Tommy A. out in New Mexico, and a good-looking guy with the mustache down below. There's two good-looking guys. There's three good-looking guys with mustaches. How about that shit? But the guy on the bottom of the screen, we're going to introduce him in about 3 minutes. But what's going on, Tommy boy?
I officially had to bring the brass monkey in off the front porch because it was 12 degrees this morning when I left to go to the swimming pool. And
nice.
I think that's the lowest we've hit this year.
Got the brass monkey off the porch. I love it. I think we talk about that every winter, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. Yes.
And I think this is our bastard. Yes, this is about our 13th winter, I think, is about as long as we're doing this show. Feels like the 50th, but 13 is good, you know. But yeah, here too, we had 2 days of rain, which we desperately need in this area. And then last night, we had 60-mile-an-hour winds, pushed the whole thing out. Woke up this morning, it was 30 with feels like 15 with the wind. So tomorrow and next day, it'll be the same thing. So we're
winter is knocking at the door.
Knocking at the door, and I went through. Unfortunately, I went through Midtown Manhattan on the way home yesterday, and Christmas is in full bloom in New York City. There are 2.5 million people, visitors, that are cramming into one corner to look at a tree with lights on it. Don't ask me, okay? But they got to go see the tree, and that's that. But yeah, it's the city's crowded right now, man. We're loaded with tourists and all kinds of shit going on. So, but with that, as we get into that, you know what? I'm going to do it now because I'm going to forget later. So, to our friends, our brothers and sisters, to everybody who tunes in and have been tuning in and being loyal watchers, I just want to wish everybody a great, happy holiday season. Whatever you celebrate, I don't care. Even if it's Festivus, I'm in. And a happy, healthy, and safe new year for 2025. Let's bring everybody home after the call. Most important. So you guys can do that later if you want. You can do it now. It doesn't matter to me.
Festivus for the rest of us.
There you go, pal. So you also note for the very first time on this show, Tommy's wearing a hat. It's a long story. You know, me, I don't have any hair, and I wish I did. He has hair, and he covers it up. Don't ask me what's going on. And I'm thinking Grant's got a full head of hair, too. The guys that have hair, they cover it up. I don't get it.
I am late getting to the barber shop.
Okay. Well, last time I went to the barber, I told him part my hair in the middle. What did he say to me?
Yeah.
I got to pull one out. You have 13, he told me. Okay. So you can get it right in the middle. So what can I tell you? Tom, would you introduce our guest, please?
Yes, it is my pleasure to introduce the paramedic captain from the Durango Fire and Rescue Department. Captain Grant Allen is just north of where I'm located, up here in Farmington, New Mexico. Grant's has experience, both career and volunteer, serving up in Dove Creek, Colorado, which I tried to explain to Ron that it's actually known as Pigeon Ditch, Colorado. But we'll refer to it as Dove Creek while we're on the show. Spent some time with Cortez, Colorado Fire, and is now a paramedic captain with Durango Fire and Rescue. Grant, welcome to the show. I appreciate you being here today.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me. It's great to hang out.
Good. We had a nice telephone chat recently, that the three of us talking about, you know, the issues of the day, and we're going to talk about them a little bit here too, you know, and the lithium-ion battery crisis, you know, and all that stuff. But but it's something that needs to be dealt with. It's not just, we're having a lot of it in New York because of population density. Somebody said recently that they think we have 100,000 battery bikes and scooters in the city of New York. So our rate is greater because we have that many more things going on. But no one's immune from it. There are electric cars everywhere. There are scooters and bikes everywhere. So we'll get a little bit into that. Grant, if you would, tell us about the Durango, Colorado Fire Department. The size, shift size, how many stations, manpower, staffing, all that stuff.
Yeah, so we're a combination department. We cover, it's about, I think the district is 57 miles long, covers the Animas River corridor, basically from New Mexico state line all the way up into the mountains, which is kind of cool because we go from desert to, I think the highest point of our district has got to be over 10,000 feet. And so we kind of get to see all of that as we go up, and the change in, scenery and vegetation and whatever that is. So we're staffed every day with 25 to 26 people, and we have 4 staff stations, 16 total stations. So we have a volunteer contingent as well. So
you guys, do you run kind of everything, your EMS and the whole bit?
Yeah, we're all hazards. So we've got EMS and fire. All of our people are cross-trained. We do have a few people that work as single resource and an interfacility transport rig that is just EMS, but otherwise everybody is cross-trained fire and EMS.
Gotcha. And I think currently you're the training captain. Is that right? Is that what you?
No, I'm a line captain in Durango. So
okay. Have some training duties. I think in you.
I do, yeah. So several years ago, when I was an engineer, I helped with a promotional testing, and was unimpressed with a bunch of people who didn't seem to be able to get water in and out of the truck. So I guess I was critical of it, and so that's how I ended up with a driver operator training program, teaching DO, DOP, and driver operator aerial, pumper, and the regular driver operator cert. And then we developed a promotional academy that goes after the certification for, we call it acting in the capacity of, or AIC. And so I have an AIC academy that I teach every fall that, we get people ready to sit the seat and act in the capacity of an engineer. So
is that when they're pending getting promoted, like before they get promoted?
Yeah, we require people to be qualified for the position first. So they go through and get their state certification. And then we come back and teach them the differences between IFSTA and what we actually do in our job, or specific things about, I might do a Pierce lecture about our Pierce engines, or I definitely do an in-service on our 100-foot platform Pierce, just the specifics to those individual trucks. And it just prepares them to actually sit the seat beyond certification. At the end of that, we have some scenarios where, we put them through the ringer to challenge them and see how they get out of it. Some of them are pretty tough scenarios that at times I would probably struggle to get through, but it's more about seeing what's their problem solving, how familiar are they with the truck. And then at the end of that, then we give them the blessing. You can now act in the capacity of an engineer and fill and ride that seat. And then the next time a promotion comes up, those are the people that are on the list. So
gotcha. It's a good idea, because there's nothing like good preparation. Brunacini did that 25, 30 years ago when he started. They started a program in Phoenix when, if you were on the list to get promoted from captain to battalion chief, you were the battalion chief's driver. They call him a technician. Yeah. They invented a title called technician. And so now you got about a year out. You become the technician for the battalion chief. You ride with that battalion for almost a whole year, and you learn how to become a battalion chief. And then when you get appointed, you're there. You're already there. So those kinds of programs, I think they're invaluable to the fire service. So I think you guys are on the right track. As far as I can see, you're kind of a little bit of cutting edge.
It's been interesting to watch. It's I always consider Durango a neighboring department, but to watch them evolve into what they are right now, they've had some terrific leadership. God rest the soul of Mike Dunaway, who was the chief after some department mergers. And the guys that are in there now, Randy Black is running the show, who I've known longer than I care to even think about. And Dan Noonan, Hal Dowdy, some of the other guys that have been in there. And it's a top-notch organization. And even though they are a neighbor, I'm not blowing smoke. It's a good organization.
I see what you did there, blowing smoke, talking about the fire department. I get that. That's pretty good, Tom. You know, you're not that funny normally, so that was pretty. I'm impressed.
I just have to say it's a pretty great place to work if you want to live in Southwest Colorado. It's or the Four Corners area, and you want to be, especially if you're into EMS. It's the place to be. Fire and EMS and Durango. Just in the last 10 years, the growth that we've seen. We've opened new stations, we've added additional positions, and we went from, I think whenever I started, we were doing 16 staffed every day, and now we're doing 25. And probably in the next 3 to 5, we'll be increasing with another station in that Three Springs area out by the hospital. So
the towns and cities have to realize that they have to grow the services with the town. I spoke to the chief who took my spot in Wilton, Connecticut. And in fact, we were on the phone yesterday and we were catching up and he had heard I was in the firehouse a few weeks ago. I got invited for dinner by one of the shifts. I went back to the old command and I had dinner with the guys and we were just catching up on everything, and chiefdom, like we say, I said, how's chiefdom treating you? And of course we all know it's lonely at the top, right, Tommy?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But he said that they're putting up, Wilton's it's a 30 square mile town. It's very affluent. It's in Fairfield County, Connecticut. It's affluent. And the biggest buildings I had were 3 and 4 story in the downtown area, all little office buildings and industrial parks. And so now he says they're putting up a couple of 6 stories. All of a sudden, they got 6-story buildings going up, apartment type living. And they have at least a half a dozen to 8 old age homes in the place, and the call volume went up since I left 5 years ago. They're up 500, 800 calls a year. So he's making his appeal for manpower, and the new regime said, "Oh yeah, you're going to need some more people. We get that." So he's finally going to get a couple of more. Hopefully, it's a small 6-man shift operation, so he's going to go to 8-man shift operation. Just to get the pieces out the door, and it's. If you don't know the Northeast, Grant, a lot of towns and cities like where you are, you might have to wait a half hour for mutual aid to get there. The way things are spread out all over where you guys live, in New Jersey, Connecticut, New York, the next town is 2 miles away.
Yeah,
it's very dense. So when I had mutual aid coming, my town was 30 square miles, but there was 4 career departments and 2 volunteer departments on the perimeter, like on a clock. And they're right on the town line, and they're there, 10 minutes. I had maybe 10 minutes most. So everything's very close, very densely populated. But even with that, I don't have to tell you, you got to get the first line in the door, and you get it between the fire and the people and that kind of stuff. So as the town's growing, at least they're starting to see. I try to get the manpower, they won't give it to me. But now he's got the numbers behind him, the new boss. So they're shaking their head yes, and they're going to start giving them a couple of more firefighters each year, and they won't do it all 8 guys at once. They won't do that. Oh my God! So give them 2 at a time and send them around to the shifts and put them on days or whatever he's going to do. I don't know how he's going to do it, but the towns have to grow, And what's his name, Tommy? Matty Toby is building a new firehouse. He's building a new fire. Summit just opened up their new headquarters in New Jersey. So
I saw pictures of Summit's house, and it's gorgeous. It's a little close to the train tracks, which always reminds me of that scene from the Blues Brothers movie when Dan Aykroyd and John Belushi are in the apartment and the elevated train keeps going by. I imagine it's probably going to sound like that in the firehouse.
Yeah, well, that's okay. Don't get used to it like anything else. You just get used to it. So with all of that, so at least some of the towns and cities and they're paying attention to that, but they need to. They don't, they don't. Sometimes the politicians, they don't understand that, they don't want to understand it because once they say, "Oh yeah, I get it," and they don't do nothing about it, then they kind of hung up a little bit. So
on the hook. So Grant, I was going to ask you when we first started having discussions about some of the lithium-ion battery issues and some of that, you said you had kind of gained your first taste of that at the FDIC Fire Department Instructors Conference in Indianapolis. What did you glean from the presentation that led to your interest in the problem?
Well, prior to that, my engineer is a hazmat tech, or at that time was, and he was constantly talking about Teslas, not being able to put them out. So when I went to FDIC and I saw that there was a lithium-ion class, I was like, oh, that's, something on my radar. And the class that I had intended to go to got filled up really quick. So I quickly jumped over next door and got into this class. And it was actually from a guy out of Colorado. Pretty sure his name was Paul Shoemaker from Castle Rock. And he taught this class, and he just, he presented a ton of information really quick, and it hammered me because I didn't realize this was even a thing. I knew, it might be hard to put a car fire out. I hadn't actually thought about it further. And he started talking about mobility devices and electric storage systems, within houses and the shipping container. He brought up the Surprise, Arizona incident. And all of a sudden he talked about, I think, the concentration of gas, and that there was hydrogen levels that were within their explosive range. And then as he got to talking about it, it just kind of clicked in my brain. And it more or less, I'm glad I took the classes in the order that I did, because Paul Shoemaker, he got my attention. He grabbed my attention on the thing. Didn't give me a lot more than, just the hazard. And so then I followed that up, canceling some of the ones that I planned to take. And I went on to the FSRI presentation and actually got, what they're doing about it and how they're testing. And so that's really where this all started for me, was accidentally. So
that's a good thing.
Yeah.
So what'd you do when you got home? Again, that's always the quintessential question. It's great to go to class at FDIC and you learn all that stuff. What'd you do with it when you got home? That's the question.
I was actually kind of scared for, I knew that most of the people that I worked with in Durango, they weren't going to know these things that I had just learned. And I was worried that the lithium-ion call was going to come in and I was going to be off duty, and not be able to call and have an impact on that, and possibly hear about, firefighters getting into a bad spot and hurt or killed, or make it into, a national publication, which we all are trying to avoid because, hey, the Durango Fire Department couldn't put out this fire. And then at home on my Dove Creek Volunteer Fire Department, I definitely knew that they wouldn't know anything about lithium-ion. So I went to work trying to compile everything that I could in some form of a presentation that I could deliver to give them an awareness level of the hazards, so that they at least knew that it existed. And, I as I put myself into the shoes of the captain who was first due on the Surprise, Arizona, I realized I wouldn't have done the same. He knew the hazard. He didn't know how to deal with it, but he immediately told his crew, like, we're not going to go in there. We're going to identify the hazard zone, and I'm going to call a hazmat team. And I knew that prior to FDIC, I wouldn't have done that. I would have gone up there and possibly opened the door and blown myself and my whole crew up. So that was my fear. And so I taught in Dove Creek, and then I taught all 3 shifts in Durango. And then, to follow that up, well, now I have neighbors. I worked in Cortez, and I have friends on every single fire department. And so then it was the traveling roadshow, which, I'd visit a different volunteer fire department 2 or 3 times a month and just traveled around and gave them a 2-hour presentation. And then I built an abridged version. There's the county south of mine, which Cortez is in, has a Montezuma County Fire Chiefs Association. And I asked a friend of mine down there, hey, can I get on the agenda? And I came in and taught I planned on a 20-minute presentation to all the chiefs of the entire county. And with their questions, it became almost 40 minutes. And I grabbed their attention, and then they all wanted me to come and teach their people. So kind of how this expanded. I never intended for lithium-ion to be my thing, and it became my thing because I just wanted everybody to know and not get blown up. So
when the county chiefs got interested and wanted you to come to their county, did your hourly rate go up for speaking? You know, did you?
Well, you want to know how much money I've made off of this so far? $0.
I knew that was coming.
I'm not smart. I'm a really good volunteer. I'm not a very good at figuring out how to get paid to do this.
Not a good business guy. That's okay. Listen, man. Listen, we all did plenty of gratis work when we were young, when we were your age and younger. And hey, Ray, can you come? Yeah, I'll be happy to come. You know, you want to share your knowledge. You want to get it out in the interest of. You really and you know, we've been doing that ever since. Sometimes you get paid, sometimes you don't. But you know, if you're serious about the business we're in, and obviously you are, like Tommy and I have been for the last 50 years or so, you want to share it. You want to give it back. You know, I remember graduating with my master's degree in fire protection. The first thing at graduation, it was all over. I walked up to the chairman of the department at the college and said, "You got a teaching spot for me?" He goes, "What do you mean?" I said, "I got to give it back." You know, I felt indebted to give everything back that I got. You know, and it's just kind of the way that most guys who go to FDIC and who voluntarily step up and teach 30 or 40 or 50 classes. It's how we're wired, you know, which is good. Most of the fire service is wired that way. Not everybody, but most of the fire service is kind of wired that way. So it's good.
We have a Colorado Firefighters Academy, which is like a regional academy down here. And I started there. When I first started with Dove Creek Volunteer Fire Department, I went to the Colorado Firefighter Academy and went through something called Rookie Track prior to
Tommy,
academy or certification or anything.
Excuse me, Tommy, is that the Colorado Fire Academy you were involved with?
Yeah, and that's the one you taught at.
Oh, you've taught there.
I was a guest speaker in the Telluride.
Oh, nice.
Yep. Yeah. By the second day, I got sick as a dog with mountain air sickness or whatever the hell you call that.
But,
you were impressed with Telluride International Airport.
Yes, Telluride International, very impressive. Yes, yeah. I remember coming in was harrowing enough. Going out off the mountain was like getting catapulted off an aircraft carrier. And that was like cool as hell. But just where everybody's like in the back pushing like this, making sure he gets off the thing. So. By the way, sat next to Ronnie Coleman on my trip back to the big airport in Denver. So I sat with Ronnie Coleman and had a nice chat.
I know I've told the story a couple of times. God rest his soul. He was such a great guy. But I was looking for a book. I know, Ron, you find that rather shocking, but the one on one of the originals on interior firefighting. I told Ron I found one on eBay for like $500, and he's like, it's crazy. And probably within 3 days of me getting home, I get a copy in the mail out of his library.
Yeah, and he probably had 3 of them too.
Yeah. There was, in fact, I got both of Lloyd Lehman's books from Chief Coleman, and that's just the kind of guy he was, wanting to share information.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Like I said, he's terribly missed.
Yeah, and that kind of leans itself back into FDIC that Grant brought up before, and that's why you go there. The first couple of times I went, I got to speak to, because everybody's humble enough. I don't care who they are. Some guys, their head can't get through the door. But on a one-on-one basis at FDIC, you can walk up to your favorite guy who you read in the magazine every month or you've seen lecture, and he'll have a chat with you. Yeah. And one of the things I always talked about Ray Downey from New York. Ray was the most decorated guy in the history of New York City Fire Department, and he'd be sitting in the fire engineering booth and talking to the chief from Los Angeles for a half hour, and you walk by 2 hours later, and there's a 22-year-old volunteer fireman sitting there, and he's giving him the same half hour. And that was Ray to the T. But just about everybody else. I remember meeting for the first time. There were guys around before you, Grant, that were senior to me, guys named Bert Phelps and Glenn Gaines, and they were writing for the magazine. And then I saw them in person at the National Fire Academy. I went to take a class. It's like, wait a minute, I've been reading you for like 10 years, and you get to meet those people. And then FDIC, the first time I met Frank Brannigan, I wanted his autograph, and Hal Bruno and all those guys, but so
the first year I went to FDIC was Brunacini was there. I spent my entire career in Durango being a product of Brunacini because we took on the blue card program, and so I knew Brunacini. He's that fire celebrity,
right?
And then I met him in person there, and it was I was starstruck, and it was pretty neat. And yeah, he was the guy that everybody said he was.
Regular guy. You couldn't even buy him a drink. He never drank. Iced tea was his drink. That was it. But everybody was approached. I don't care. Even today, you can walk up to John Norman and John Salker and Rick Lasky and Billy Goldfed, all the big talking heads, like we call them, and they'll sit and chat with you. They love telling their story to help you get your story, and that kind of stuff. So that's kind of.
I got to visit with Danny Sheridan the last time I was out there.
Gotcha.
And I really enjoy listening to Danny Sheridan, and I ran into him out in the streets. He was out getting dinner, and I said, "Hey, and I had a conversation with him on the street. He's like, you should come to my class tomorrow," and he told me all about it and invited me over. And a guy from Durango going to learn from an FD&Y guy, like we're on so different fire departments, except it was cool. You can glean whatever you want to glean out of those conversations.
Grant, when you say that, the one thing that we've said for a long time is, the fire you have in Durango in a 2.5-story frame house doesn't burn any differently than a 2.5-story frame house in Queens or Brooklyn. It doesn't. It's the same fire. So when we kind of look at it and say this is the brotherhood, we're all in it together, it's the truth, because we just have more of it for the most part. But the fire is the same. The amount of BTUs coming out of the house, the amount of water it takes to get it out. If you got to throw ladders, it's the same fire. It's just two different parts of the country. It's the same exact fire. So we really all are in it together, and that's the mantra that was taken on by the guys that went to FDIC and by the magazine, back in the day, before Bill Manning, and before him was Tommy Brennan, and before him was somebody else. But it was like, come here and sit down and talk to the people you want to talk to and get what you can get, and then bring it home and make it work for you, which be also the mantra of the National Fire Academy. You go to Emmitsburg for a week or two, take it home and put it to work. And I did that many, many times, as a chief, sitting in class and then teaching, and every time I taught a class in Emmitsburg, and Tommy, I know you'll agree because you're still teaching there, you come home with something like, I didn't think of that, or you learn something from the people sitting in the classroom.
Oh yeah, it's definitely a two-way street. Yep. I always tell the students it's kind of sad that I'll probably walk away with more information than what I'm going to give you.
Right. So I'm curious to know. It sounds like you tackled the lithium-ion battery thing head on in Durango. What else are you looking at now? Like you're looking in your crystal ball and saying, well, I don't know if you saw it the other day. They had a massive explosion. A garbage truck blew up in Illinois. It had CNG tanks. It was run on compressed natural gas. Did you see that?
Yeah, as I've worked through this, because I've been kind of attacking this from all different directions. I came back and kind of gave my awareness training, and then it's like, now I need an operations training, and at some point I'm going to need some technical training. But along with that, you guys know how it is. We can't buy equipment and teach people tactics if we don't have some SOPs and SOGs to back it up. Right. So I started working on that, and it's funny, the rabbit holes that have come up because of lithium-ion. So I got a hold of Phoenix's SOPs on car fires to figure out what they were doing about lithium-ion cars. And yeah, it talks about hydrogen, and it talks about LNG and all of this different stuff. And I was like, well, I guess I should look into that. I didn't know that was a thing. And then I find all this stuff on semis, and they're running this natural gas LNG. And then the hydrogen is actually a thing again. I remember hearing about hydrogen car. I didn't realize that they're doing that again. So yeah, it's just every single time I ask a question, it comes back with 10 or 12 more questions and maybe an answer.
I haven't seen them run vehicles on LNG, but compressed natural gas rather than liquefied natural gas. It's compressed. It's CNG.
Is that what it is? Oh yeah, that's right.
It's CNG. Yeah, CNG.
Yeah, that's I'm freshly entering that rabbit hole right now. So
Gotcha.
And then,
Grant, I know your research had led you to, and I think you were working with Steve Rinaldi on trying to get some answers on what to do post-fire with some of that stuff. Did you guys research come up with anything? Or?
So, yeah, I went to him with two questions that I wanted his input, and it had to do with those SOPs. And I'd reached out to Ron, too, to ask a couple of those questions, but what do we do in a structure fire with suspected source of lithium ion? How do we remove it? What do we do with it after? All that questions. And then what are we going to do with the removed lithium ion batteries? Where are we going to put them? Who takes care of them? And I had reached out to Ron to ask that question. What do you guys do with them in FDNY? Because we can say, hey, there's lithium ions and here's how to fight them. But then what? And
we have a task force at the moment. It's the Bureau of Fire Prevention and the Bureau of Fire Investigation, which is our fire marshals. They're a joint task force, and when we respond to those fires and to incidents without fires having to do with batteries, we issue a summons and a violation order to the owner to tell them to get a certified contractor licensed by the Department of Environmental Conservation by the state to get this stuff out of here. You got to do it, and the Department of Environmental Conservation, they issue a 48-hour order to get it all out. So 48, and so there are licensed contractors around the country now that will come and pick it up and dispose of it properly, whatever that is. But we don't. The only thing we do is if we have an active scene, if they call our hazmat team, they'll overpack it in cell block. They're using cell block now. They overpack it, and then I don't believe we take it away. I don't think we do. That we leave it there for that contractor to come and pick it up and get it out. So that's we overpack it so we could stop the hazard and mitigate the hazard. But other than that, we don't take it with us. That's for sure.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I've been trying to educate, and I talked to Steve Rinaldi about, and also I wanted his opinion of how, from an investigator's standpoint, how does the marshal's office want us to pass this on, and what do you want to know? So we'd done that, but along the way, I can't remember the guy's last name, but he's a fire marshal in Los Alamos. His first name's Colorado, and Steve had reached out to him, and he said, it's funny you bring this up. We have all these questions all the time. I don't have any answers, but I'm going to get them in January. And Teeks College in College Station is going to have a lithium-ion summit down there. It's a 2-day, 8-hour summit, and we got a hold of it. And so myself and our training chief and one of our hazmat technicians, we're going to fly down to College Station first week of January and go to this summit and hopefully, get some information about what are other people doing and what's some things that we haven't thought of yet. And just another one of those rabbit holes that I'm chasing. So,
yeah. And for us, we did a 2-day at the Fire Academy in New York 2 years ago in 2022. And it was still brand new and fresh, and we got 300 guys from around the country instantly that came to this thing for 2 days. And the first questions is, what about this? How you handling that? Hey, and our hazmat lieutenants, listen, right now we're building the plane as we're flying it. And we still are. We're still building the plane as we're flying it. We're still learning and trying to figure out, the best thing to do. So,
I think that I would rather be trying to figure it out along the way than just sitting back and just hoping for the best.
Oh yeah, you can't sit back. No, that's not an option. It's not an option, and it's not. I don't think it's not how we do things in the fire service. We see a problem, we tackle it head on, and we try to solve it. That's what we do at Problem Solvers. People ask me about that, about firefighters and about fire. But I said we solve problems. Brunacini used to say our job is to get in between the problem and the customer and make their problem go away so they can have a better day. It's true. Our job is to make their problem go away and solve their problem for them, no matter what it is. So. I think it's a topic. It's the current hot topic. In the 70s it was arson, in the 80s it was hazmat, and now it's lithium-ion batteries, which is a hazmat. I think the idea is to keep the discussion going and share information. We're pretty good with that. I'm kind of proud of the New York Fire Department, because when we have stuff, we share it. When those guys came to that seminar, there was 8 or 9 or 10 documents, and we had one of them fancy square codes up on the screen. We said, hey, if you downloaded that, you'll get all these slides, because we had speakers from NIST and from FSRI and all the other places come for 2 days. So we gave everybody everything that they were looking for, and so if we continue to share, I think we'll be a lot better off. I think we'll be
one of the things that's driven me, and this is kind of a motto that's kind of sat in the back of my head this whole time as I've thought about, wow, I'm putting way too many hours into this, and I'm is this really worth it? The guy from FSRI that taught out there, and I wish I remembered his name. He was talking about a few things of, hey, let's not be scared of this thing. Let's just figure out how do we deal with this and move on, because we could be scared of this and we could put this off and do like they did, in the 80s and 90s and in the 2000s. When I started in the fire service, we were learning how to fight fire in modern day structures and how it's different between modern and legacy. Only at some point along the way, I'm looking at this and going, well, legacy ended a long time ago, a couple decades ago. And he brought that up, and he's like, we killed firefighters for 2 decades until we started to really go national and say, hey, fires burn differently in modern constructed and modern furnished houses. We should probably learn how to fight fire in this. And he said, let's not do the same thing with lithium-ion. Let's just figure out how to deal with it, and it will just become another part of how we deal with all hazards. And that really stuck with me. So
makes sense.
For sure.
That's got Dan Madrikowski written all over it.
Yeah, you're not kidding. Shit.
So I had the pleasure of attending the National Fire Academy Instructors monthly meeting yesterday, and Eric Gablix was leading the charge on presenting information as to what's going on at that level. And of course, the question arose of, hey, who's going to be the next United States Fire Administrator? Well, I guess rumors abound and speculation is great out there, but Eric's kind of reminded me of you, Ron, when he said, let's put your pistols back in the holsters and wait a little bit. And we don't know who's going to take Dr. Lori's place. I hate to see her go, because I think she's doing a great job. But, the change of leadership for the United States is going to drive who the next administrator is going to be. So it's kind of a hide and watch situation. And Eric's was asking to try to cut down on the speculation a little bit. I guess there's names flying all over the place, but we won't know for a while.
I haven't heard a thing.
No, I haven't heard anything.
I haven't heard a thing.
I know Dr. Lori will be gone when President Biden leaves office.
Right.
So, we'll kind of hide and watch and see who's going to take the spot as our nation's top fire official.
Yeah, we know that. I know last month we talked about Donna Black and Chief Donna Black getting the deputy administrator's job, and we're kind of glad about that. She was just the president of the International Association of Fire Chiefs, and she also should be a good addition to our national fire picture, if you will. So I saw that. Tommy, did you see the and by the way, Grant, as we start to talk about other things, we'll talk about safety and line of duties and all that. Just feel free to jump in with us as well, as we talk about other issues, because we cover a pretty good realm of issues on this show. But they released the NIOSH report on the line of duty death of the lieutenant in Spring Valley, New York.
Jared Lloyd was the lieutenant there who made the supreme sacrifice at the facility that had burned. and I had pointed out in our earlier conversation, Ron, that looking at the recommendations and the contributing factors in the NIOSH report, as sad as it is, I'm not seeing anything different in the long list of line of duty death reports. And I hate to be that way, and we don't misunderstand me. We still need to heed the lessons that were learned and the information that's pointed out in the NIOSH report. But we're not coming up with any new ways of killing ourselves. And I mean, you can look at the contributing factors, the cultural cleaning ceremony, obviously in the dairy kitchen of the, and I guess it was a senior living facility, that they were going to kosher the kitchen for the upcoming holiday, and that was certainly a contributing factor. But you look at things like the fire alarm system was offline, the fire sprinkler system wasn't there. It was a non-sprinkled facility. No enforcement of building and fire codes. There was no water supply for fire suppression. No pre-incident planning, no crew integrity, inadequate accountability, inadequate tactical and task level management, and no fast team, no rapid intervention on the fire ground. And they were all items that contributed to the line of duty death.
And not that, like you just said, I'm listening intently. I downloaded the report yesterday. I didn't get a chance to read it, but I'm listening to what you're saying, and there's nothing new. It jumped off the screen just now. So right. like in the past, we like you said, we're not killing our own any differently than we did for the last 200 and change years. I mean, I don't know. You know, Tommy, you know, we've been involved with the National Fallen Firefighters a long time. You know, I just finished 25 years with them, and we had all the Everyone Goes Home program and all that stuff, and trying to do everything physically and mentally that we can to keep our people safe and not get, listen, we know we're in a dangerous business and things happen, and sometimes you do everything right and something happens. We know that. The first time I really heard that was when Kevin Apuzio got killed in New Jersey in 2006. They did everything right. Everything right. They were dressed to the nines. They had tools. They were doing everything. They went in. They made the rescue. He was carrying that woman out. They didn't know the fire was under them. Now, maybe the not right part was that they didn't do a complete size up on six sides of the fire. You know, A, B, C, and D, above and below. They just had no clue the fire was under them. So they went into the basement, and we know how the story ends. So sometimes you just do everything right, and things go wrong. So...
and a lot of times, and I can't say I have not been guilty of it myself, but complacency kills firefighters.
No doubt. Everybody gets comfortable. We've been here 1,000 times, nothing happened. We've been here 1,000 times, nothing happened. We've done this 1,000 times and nothing have happened. We'll do it 1,001, 1,002. When I teach safety, one of the examples I use is the captain in California who was walking across the terracotta tile roof and then went in. You know, that was about, I think, 2015. Can't think of the name of the city. And everybody in the fire department said, he's done that thousands of times. He's done it thousands. So he did it 1,000. The 1,001th, he went through the roof, got burned up bad, lived a short time, and then succumbed to his injuries. So we do get complacent. That's why the safety officer is the most hated man on the fire ground, because he keeps telling people, be careful, watch yourself, do this, butt the ladder, put your hood on, wear your gloves, blah, 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 because that guys don't want to be told that. But, you know, it's for their own good. It's like, you know, when is it end? You know, when it comes to safety, Tom, I told you, and even it was in the forward in my health and safety guide for fire engineering, the book I did. It's the front page. It says in there, chiefs need to say to their firefighters, I can't want this more than you. I knew a chief who said that to us. When we were talking about safety, he looked at his members and said, I can't want this more than you. And I used that. I stole that right away. And I went back to my guys in the firehouse, and we're talking about safety and about deconning after a structure fire and a fresh hood on when you come out. Change your bottle, change your hood, go back, all that stuff. Clean the cab, all that. When it was popular 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, we started talking about this stuff. And they were looking at me like I was from Mars. And I said to them, I can't want this more than you. It was a perfect line. It was great. I'm the chief. I'm not going in. You guys are getting all shitted up in that fire. Don't you want to be unshitted when you come out? We're learning not to ride back with your turnout gear on in the cab with the heat on because it's off gassing and you're breathing that in, which is why today we have a cancer rate in the fire service today. Now we know better. So we look at guys like Grant, a young officer who now has the knowledge. We didn't know. We had no idea. You don't know what you don't know. Who has the knowledge, and he can make a difference in his own life and the life of his firefighters by saying, hey, we have some science behind this. Let's not be stupid here. The generation behind us had cancer. We don't have to have cancer. We don't have to, not necessarily. So, it's this stuff cycles on and off. Getting back to the NIOSH report, it's the same thing over and over again. Grant, if you haven't read NIOSH reports, and maybe you have, you can go back 30 years and look at NIOSH reports, and where it says contributing factors, it'll say the same shit Tommy just spewed out 10 minutes ago. The same stuff. Lack of crew integrity, lack of command, blah, 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 blah. It's there. Communications is usually one thing. Did they cite communications, Tom, in this one?
No, not in this one.
Yeah, so it's the same thing, So, Grant, as we're talking about this, I'd like to pull you back in and ask you about your safety program in Durango.
They do cite, though, incident command system.
Okay.
And lack of IAP, all those normal things that, we've seen in all these line of duty death reports. And you can almost go through all the 30 fires in that book that just came out that Frank and Billy just put out.
Yep.
And you can see a lot of commonalities between all of those fires.
Yep.
So I just finished reading the Southwest Inn fire. Tom, did you know that I didn't know this. I finished reading the Southwest Inn fire, and I remember that happening, and I didn't remember the specifics of it. Most of these fires I had heard of. Some of them I didn't know the specifics. But did you know that Iron Bill moved up to Durango? That's where he passed away, was in Durango?
Yeah, we had escorted his hearse out of the Hood mortuary and then down to I think he went down to Albuquerque and got flown home. But yeah, he had been living up in Durango and eventually succumbed to the injuries from that fire. There's another gentleman from the same department that lives up in Durango as well. His name escapes me for the moment. But,
Jeff Harris and I were talking about it. Harris was the battalion chief on the day he passed away, and so he sent a medic unit out to move him, from the hospital to Hood's mortuary. And then but I didn't realize, I just, how it is. I wasn't in the right place to really know much about that. I knew that there was a firefighter that had passed away, and we did some stuff for him, but I didn't realize until after I read that and we talked about it. But yeah, in that book, I mean, you see kind of the same stuff over and over again, and all those things that we learned. So and
Grant, can you talk about the safety program in Durango? What it looks like and what you guys do on the safety end in the fire department?
Yeah, we just had a pretty big, one of the things that we didn't adopt early in the blue card program from Brunacini, we were missing one key position, and that was the safety officer. We didn't have a safety officer. And so just in the last year, I guess maybe it's 2 years now, almost 2 years, after we had some changes in our training division. And one of the people that were kind of central to our training programs, he passed away from an accident. And so they were looking at how do we do this? And so they needed training officers, and nobody wants to go to the 8 to 5 job. We all want that 4896.
There you go.
So they put a safety officer on that's also a training captain on every shift. So they're out doing trainings, but then they're free floating in to those bigger incidents. And they kind of have a response protocol, but more or less, they're they're the one person on the fire ground that is allowed to freelance and go into the right places to make sure that, be the eyes and ears of an incident commander, make sure that people are doing what they want. And I think that's probably the biggest recent development that we've had. And I know
I'm happy to see that. No one having been through Blue Card a couple of times. The theory behind it was that safety's embedded into every position in Blue Card, which I agree with. We all need to provide that extra set of eyes and ears on the fire ground. But I like to see a dedicated safety officer position to make sure we know that some of that stuff's being addressed on the fire ground.
Yeah, and I think it became an important thing because the guys fighting the fire, the guys that are in there, they're trying to get the fire out. They're doing searches. The truck companies they're doing searches. They're throwing ladders. They're softening up the building. The engine guys are stretching hard. It's really hard. It's difficult to be. I mean, you have to have situational awareness, what's going on around you, and all. But having that person who's not necessarily engaged in that fight to stand back a few feet and be able to look at the whole thing and say, that's a problem. We're going to get guys hurt in there or whatever it is. I think it's a blessing to have that person on a fire ground. I really
It is. And I just a few weeks ago, I worked my first shift as a safety 1 is the position title. And they were trying to figure out when we have a vacancy, how do we fill it? And so they decided the senior captains and those who have the ability to act in the capacity of a battalion chief are the people who should fill that. So a shift popped up and I jumped into it and I worked it, and we had an embankment rescue. It was a nothing thing, but we had to change the direction off of a front bumper of an engine, and we had a lower of a Stokes basket and then a raise off a pretty steep hill. And so I'm working the position my first day, and I walk over there and I just look around and I go, whoa, hold on a second. You guys didn't tie in the basket right, and we're missing this, we're missing that. Like, let's bring all this together. And we finished the call, and all of the people in those individual positions were more than capable. There were some people that, might not be experts, but they were above adequate, more than average, on their knowledge and skills, but they just needed somebody to bring that all together. And the incident commander, they couldn't see all the components of the system. They needed that person wandering around. And I think it was a great example of how, you put great people in great positions. You can have a lot of great firefighters on a structure fire, but if you're not getting that 60 or 100-foot view, you might miss something. Or, you think you've got the fire. How many times have we, that first due crew, man, we got knocked down and everything's feeling good. And then you've got somebody calling, going, man, you still got smoke cranking out of that attic space. And you need to open it up. And you think you're one, and you can only see that everything's getting better, and they're sending more crews in. And that's where that position, I think, is going to be super valuable and pick up where incident commanders miss. So
I guess you kind of opened up the door, so I'm going to stick my foot in it. All right. Where for that rescue, that embankment rescue, were there officers like lieutenants or captains on the scene in charge of this crew? These crews?
Yeah, there was a captain, and he was coordinating between the crew that made access to the patient and PD, because this turned out to be a homeless individual, and so. He's talking to that crew, and they're trying to talk to the hospital about, some treatments or something. And then you've got additional crews showing up for manpower for haulers, and then the equipment's all getting in place. And so, yeah, there was just a ton of stuff. But on the ground, he wouldn't have. It was that safety check that was done just prior to those guys going over the edge, where I recognized, hey, that Stokes basket isn't tied right. We got to change that. It's going to take us just 30 seconds to retie that. Get it right. And so, that's where, that safety briefing, those people in charge of the Stokes basket might have missed it.
Yep.
And just somebody to bring it all together. So
yeah, I'm glad you're doing it too. Tommy says he's glad to hear it, but it's, and a lot of departments have gone that way, especially smaller departments. They appoint a shift a captain who's in charge of training, safety, and probably some 3 or 4 other things. They give that captain 5 or 6 things to do or whatever. But at least you have that position and you have somebody who's kind of looking out, without letting the guys get too comfortable. I've been in on those conversations also with the guys. Well, we're going to do what we do. We'll throw caution to the wind because we have a safety officer, and if it's going bad, he'll jump in with a cape and cowl and he'll fly in and he'll save us all, And I said, no, the safety officer's there to kind of, again, eyes and ears of the incident commander, correct a couple of things, and then they bring that to the next step, to the FAST team or the RIC team or the Rapid Intervention Company, whatever you call them, to say, all right, well, if I get jammed up, the RIC team will come and get me. Well, no, don't get jammed up. The idea is not to get jammed up in the first place. We know shit happens, but don't depend on that. Depend on you, your skills, your knowledge, your KSAs, and the people who work around you. So it's good. It sounds like you guys got a good thing going with your safety program.
I would have jumped into that program and probably taken one of those positions, but I just have way too much fun riding that right front seat of that fire engine. I didn't want to put it in for a pickup.
You want 100,000 other guys.
So I wanted to mention a couple things on the compressed natural gas vehicles. And obviously the recent one back on December 6th in Arlington Heights, Illinois, kind of brought it to the forefront again. But I go back to the February 15th CNG incident that occurred in Los Angeles. And Billy brought some stuff up on Firefighter Close Calls here the other day. Not only of the videos that are available but with what's going on with the 7 Los Angeles firefighters that are bringing suit against the tank and vehicle manufacturers. Probably one of the best synopsis of what I've seen is going on with the lawsuit is on a website called lawinc.com, lawinc.com. And it's drilling down into what's going on with all the legal ramifications of this. And this has the potential of, kind of setting the way that future lawsuits may go in these incidents. But what I found was they provided a greater understanding of not only the incident, but looked at it from the standpoint of the plaintiffs. It looked at it from the standpoint of the defendants. It looked at the allegations that are being made, and it looked at the damages that have taken place. So keep your eyes peeled. I'm sure Kurt Ferrone will be picking up on some of this stuff with his, but this Law Inc. website really kind of drilled down as to what's going on there. From dealing with some of this stuff, there was a great article that Billy Goldfeder did in Firehouse back in January of 21 that looked at the way we approach this and some of the strategy and tactics that are out there and stuff that this was all news to me. The way CNG tanks operated, the pressure relief valves, the intricacies of going in there, and the harm that may be done of using outdated tactics into trying to cool the tanks can also lead to disaster. But if you haven't seen either one of those videos, they are eye-opening, not only from the explosion, but there was shit falling out of the sky and landing on vehicles and on the highway that
blocks away.
Yeah,
I know. And you know what? When he talks about that tactic of cooling the tank off, but what that does is it screws up the relief valve. Okay, you want the tank to relieve itself. It's going to do that from the fire. That's why it's there. So that old thinking. Sometimes we have to take another look, step back, and look at the tactic and say, well, that might not work for this. We got a lot of buses on the city streets that run on CNG. A lot of our city buses are running on compressed natural gas, so it's an issue. There are little placards on the bumper, and that kind of stuff that tells the firefighters that there's CNG on a bus. But it's another one of those clean energy, green earth, and all that stuff that people are trying to do. Whether it's CNG or we're running hydrogen or whatever it is, and that's the ripple effect. It's the pebble in the pond. Okay, let's run on CNG. Well, wait, no one talked to the firefighters yet. No one talked to the environmental people yet. No one, but let's just do it. So it's another one of those things that we have to worry about that keeps the fire chiefs up at night. There's a lot of
it's like everything else. Forewarned is forearmed. So the more information we can get out there on it, and hopefully we'll be safer. And when we operate in that environment,
listen,
I think one of the things that, as I look at all of this new technology coming out, I think that one of the things, we could go down, and I've done it with the lithium-ion, but we could go down the rabbit holes of each of these individual things. One of the things that I think will combat this a lot is if we have really good awareness, education to our firefighters, but also, as we start to teach company officers who are going to be first due into these scenes, is to start taking that tactical and even strategic mindset where, as you go in, you're seeing size up. The first thing you do is identify, do we have a hazard? And what are the things that are going to hurt us before we commit to that hazard zone? Where does the hazard zone begin and end? And, it doesn't really matter what it is. We need the education to learn how big is the hazard zone and what do we do? How do we mitigate those hazards? And, I know last time we talked on the phone, Ron, we talked about in some of those circumstances, one of the hardest things for us as firefighters to do, because we like to solve the problem, is to back off and say, hey, we might not be able to mitigate the hazards enough to make this safe for our responders to go in. So we're going to identify the hazard zone. We're going to deny entry, maybe do a quick evac of that site, and that's going to be the most hazard that we take. And so as I look at some of this alternative energy stuff and the major hazards that are going to come with this, with the lithium ion, just getting in that smoke is in concentrations where, as I understand it, you can get hydrogen fluoride or fluorine poisoning just from absorption through our bunker gear and skin. And so, I think that that's going to be, rather than having a bunch of education on each of these individual things, I think we'll fall behind if we do that. And I kind of envision it's going to be, let's teach officers to have that tactical mindset, not the task level where they're looking at it and going, the first thing I'm going to do is identify where the hazard zone begins and ends. And then, on structure fires, we're really good about calling offensive versus defensive. Well, on some of these hazmat scenes needs to be the same way. We're going to be defensive on this. We're going to step back from this hazard zone, and we're going to, we're not going to make an offensive move because we don't have the stuff in place.
For many, many years, we've talked that I was on the Hazardous Materials Committee of the International Association of Fire Chiefs for 16 years. And that was from 1990 and then 16 years later, whatever that is. Okay. So for that time, even back in 90, and hazmat was about 10 years old. Hazmat was kind of discovered in 1980 when Warren Isman from Virginia wrote the first book. And then hazmat team started to form and we need to look at this. And so here we are 10 years later. But even at that point, we said hazmat response is a hurry up and wait. And then somebody in the room once said, why are there lights and sirens on a hazmat truck? That doesn't make any sense at all. Why are we screaming to the scene, putting our people in peril, putting the drivers in peril, making old ladies get scared shit because there's a big truck coming up behind them with the air horn. When they're going to get there, it's going to take them 45 minutes to get dressed. And there was that's, to me, that was valid. It was yeah, you're right. So I think as these things come around, sometimes you just have to go back because sometimes what's old is new. When after 9/11 and we had How long are you in the service, Grant? How many years are you in the fire service?
19 years. I'll be 20 in next year. So.
Okay, so right after 2001, which is just before you got in, okay, we had a bunch of what they called powder calls. There was anthrax being mailed to congressmen, and we had a post office in New Jersey that was shut down for 5 years in Hamilton Township till they deconned the whole place. Everybody was running on powder calls. It was crazy. So we're having all kinds of, what are we going to do when it's anthrax? And some of the guys I work with saying, "Oh yeah, we got ant traps. They're all over the house." No, not ant traps, you idiot. Anthrax. So we get on a call. The chairman of the hazmat committee, John Eversole, God rest his soul, he was the chief of special operations in Chicago at the time. He was the chairman of the committee. They're having a conference call with the FBI, John representing the IFC, EPA, all the big wigs in Washington, and John Eversole, and the coolest guy you ever met, smart, all that stuff. So I called in 6 or 8 chiefs. I said, "Listen, we're going to dial in from here. Come to my conference room, and we'll sit in." We're like my mutual aid partners at the time. This is again going back to 2001, and then into early 2002. So we get on this big conference call, and the FBI guy and I knew the guy. His name was Rob something. I can't think. Rob with a W, and he was a hazmat fire guy, and he went to the FBI. They actually recruited him, and he's telling his thing, and here's how you should do it, and here's what you get. So every guy went. The last guy to go was the fire chief, John Eversole. And they said, "Oh, we want to let the fire chief talk." Everybody spoke already, and it was like an hour into this thing. It was almost over. And John, in his inimitable way, he was kind of like Brunasini, he was a laid-back guy. He said, "Hey, guys, how you doing?" So we're all laughing, right? Now, we can't speak. It's just you to listen only. He says, "It's me, it's John." Like everybody knew who he was, right? And basically everybody did. He said, "This anthrax stuff we've been talking about for an hour and for the last 5 months, it's a hazmat. Don't get it on you. Don't get it in you. Anybody have any questions? Email me," he said. He went right back to, it was a hazmat. It was a hazmat. He took it right back to, don't get it on you. Don't get it in you. Wear a level A suit, put on breathing apparatus, wear gloves, all that, and take care of it. Everybody was running around. They were losing their mind over the end. He brought it all the way back to the basics, saying, it's just a hazmat. Don't get it on you. Don't get it in you. That's it. So sometimes we need to do that with whether it's lithium-ion, whether it's the next hazard, or whether it's something we've been playing with for a couple of 100 years. It's the same old thing. So we're about 106, looks like an hour, not 106, an hour and 6 minutes in, and we start winding down right about now. So, Tommy,
I got a couple of things.
Yeah, okay, me too. Go ahead.
I'm sure you noted that the firefighter cancer registry has been reauthorized.
Yes,
by our federal things, and I know since you're a cancer survivor, that and the network are near and dear to your heart.
Yep.
I hated to see it raise its ugly head again, but had another issue up in Rockland County, New York, where a 26-year-old Muncie, New York man was arrested at a fire scene in Kaiser, New York, up in Rockland County, for reckless endangerment and obstructing government administration. This guy was a member of that rogue fire department that's running around up there. Yep. That is trying to convince the Hasidic community that they need to be the fire department up in that part of the world. This guy, Jacob Silberstein, turned on a hydrant and charged the supply line that was not ready to go in service, and I guess kind of screwed the operation up from the beginning. But he was placed under arrest for those 2 misdemeanors, and I thought maybe we got past some of that, but it looks like it's still an issue up in Rockland.
Yeah, you know who's from Rockland is God, it's a fire engineering guy, right? He's got an article in almost every issue. If I pop the current issue open, I probably see his name. He's Rockland County Hazmat. He teaches at the Academy, FDIC. Can't think. I was thinking I didn't know anybody in Rockland, but I know him. I got to give him a call as soon as I figure out who him is, and find out what's going on up there with all of this stuff. Because we've been talking about this a couple of months already.
Yeah.
It's crazy. I just wanted to also mention that the National Fallen Firefighters Foundation, which is near and dear to Tommy and I, of course, and we were involved with the Memorial Weekend I was 25 years. Tommy, how many years were you going?
I think it was about 20.
About 20, yeah. And happened to be wearing the shirt today, but they have a new award. It's the Chief Ron Sonecki Award for Excellence, and Ron was the director for 20 years. Took over in early 2001, a couple of months before 9/11 happened, and he was baptized for the next year, supporting the FDNY and of course supporting the nation's firefighters and their families and all that stuff. But they actually created an award in his name, and they just awarded it to Colorado Springs Fire Department, the Ron Sonecki Award for Excellence, for the work that they do in Colorado Springs for their own members, health, safety, everything that goes with it. Everyone goes home the whole bit. So I want to congratulate Colorado Springs and the foundation for naming an award after Ron. He did a hell of a job for 20 years putting them on the map. So I just wanted to give that shout. And while we're on the subject of the NFFF, for those of you who haven't heard yet, you probably haven't heard it because there's nothing out there yet, but it's not a secret. Coming in May will be the annual memorial services in Emmitsburg for the nation's firefighters who fell in the year 2024. And then, of course, subsequent years, past years when they forgot to file the paperwork or whatever it was. And then in October of 25, we're going to bring the entire Memorial Weekend to New York City. We have about 170 members who died since 9/11 of World Trade Center illnesses. And instead of bringing that whole extra 170 families to Emmitsburg, we're going to do the actual Memorial Weekend in New York City. So while I, this year in May, stepped down as the incident commander after 7 years as the IC for the weekend, I was tapped back in again because, as you all know, I'm working there. And they said, we want you to do it. So we did have a meeting on Monday where we brought our NFFF command team in to meet with the FDNY counterparts, and it was very successful. We're going to go indoors. We're not taking any chance with the weather. We have a huge NCAA-style gymnasium at one of the colleges on Staten Island, and next October. So the actual NFFF staff, they're doing 2 Memorial Weekends next year. So it'll be a pretty big lift for them. But I have all the confidence in the world. I think they could pull it off. So that's what's going on here. So with that, Grant, we'll give you some closing remarks. Anything you want to say? Could wish your family a Merry Christmas. So whatever, it's up to you. Go ahead, buddy. You got it.
No, I just appreciate the opportunity to hang out with you guys. I'm humbled. I think you guys have. I heard you say, 50 years in the fire service?
I got 50. Tommy's got 49. So he'll catch up.
Coming up on 20. So, I'm a little bit behind, but
keep going, brother. Keep going.
Keep going.
Right. And, I just, to the audience members, I kind of actually almost turned these guys down when they asked me to be on the show because I'm not the expert. But, for you guys out there that are looking at this stuff, if this is the first time you've heard of lithium-ion, look into it and go to FSRI. They have great courses, and bring this back to your fire department. And don't let this be the thing that gets you in the national media. It's what I'm doing. Every time that I see, a hole or a need, I jump in and try to figure out how to help do that and help fix it and find a solution. And it's all I did with the lithium-ion. I'm not an expert. I'm a long ways from an expert. I'm asking all the questions right now. I'm not giving many of the answers. So,
well, the thing is, if you keep asking questions, you'll get the answers eventually. And I think hopefully, I think you could be you might not be on the verge of being an inspiration to all the young officers around the country. And I'm not saying that to embarrass you, but we want guys like you and gals like you, boys, men and women in the fire service. You're the next generation. Tommy and I are about done. And so you're the next generation. You got to make the new stuff happen. So just jumping into the deep end of the pool like you did, that's great for me. I appreciate that. So you want to wish your wife and kids a happy holiday, a Merry Christmas or something? I know they're going to watch this. They're going to want to watch it. We know that. So
they are. Yeah. Jennifer, Hadley, Kaylee, Merry Christmas. And also to my grandpa who will be watching this. He's a retired firefighter.
Great.
Out of Haxton, Colorado. So to him, hope he gets to watch this. And to everybody else, happy and safe holidays.
Great. Super. Thanks, Grant, for being on with us. Before we go, Tommy, I got to show you what I'm reading now, man. We always do our book club at the end of the show.
Okay.
The Unthinkable. It's by Amanda Ripley. She wrote the first version of this after 9/11, and the new version is that book plus the pandemic, and it's basically it's called The Unthinkable: Who Survives When Disaster Strikes and Why. It's how the brain works. It's how you receive messages. It's how the message is delivered from those in charge. This woman is a genius, and she wrote this stuff. It's genius stuff, but a guy like me can read it and absorb it in 3 minutes. The way she put it together, she's absolutely great. It's called The Unthinkable: Who Survives When Disaster Strikes and Why. I can't put it down. I'm absolutely immersed in this book. What are you reading, pal? What are you doing? That's an oldie but a goodie. I got one of those.
Yes, it is. This
Wow.
is what I consider the 10,000-foot view of the American Fire Service.
You're not going to show off. I'll tell you that right now. Go right off the thing. You're not the only one, pal. Here it is, right there. Okay, right there.
Firefighters is published by the National Fallen Firefighters Foundation.
Yep.
So if you're going to buy a copy, get it through the foundation for a great cause. But it covers pretty much everything we do in the way of services and a pretty extensive look at the history of the fire service in the United States.
Do you know for a fact that they still have those in stock?
I think they do, Ron.
That book's got to be 20 years old, I'm thinking.
Oh, easy. So I got the list.
All right, go ahead, man. Do your thing.
So we last recorded on November 15th of 24. And since that time, there's been 4 line of duty deaths. Back on November 20th, John Walsh from the Pittsburgh Fire Department passed away from an unknown medical at a fire scene. On November 21st, Stephen Michael Pavetti from Apollo, Pennsylvania, suffered a heart attack at home after a call. On November 23rd, Johnny Goines from Jacksonville, North Carolina, made the supreme sacrifice due to an unknown medical condition, which stemmed kind of from a vehicle accident. And then on November 24th, Henry Sardina III from Hapakon, New Jersey, passed away from a heart attack at the station. Again, keep the family of the fallen in your thoughts and prayers, and heed the lessons that they've left behind for us. With that, Mr. Canterman and Grant, I want to wish both you guys a very Merry Christmas and a happy rest of the holiday season. And Grant, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you coming on and joining us. And Ron, I love you, brother.
Wow. Don't make me cry in front of all these people. What are you doing to me here? You're killing me. I love you too, pal. And Grant, thanks again for joining us. And join us again next month when we're up on a Backstep. We try to have a surprise guest now and then. But if we don't, Grant, stick around after we go off the recording because the system has to download. So don't go anywhere. Don't click us out. With that, everybody, a happy, healthy, and safe New Year. We'll see you soon. Take care.
In firefighting and public safety, reliability is key. For over 20 years, the Fire Store has equipped first responders with trusted gear featuring brands like MSA Carnes for helmets and Seek for thermal imaging cameras. Stay prepared. Visit thefirestore.com today. The Fire Store, your trusted safety partner.
This podcast is brought to you by Flex 7 from Tenkata Protective Fabrics. Flexible, comfortable, and powered with the strength of enforced technology. Flex 7 outer shell fabric is made to move. To learn more, visit tenkatafabrics.com/Flex 7.
Breathing in diesel exhaust fumes is like walking into a fire without a mask. Over time, those toxins lead to cancer. Protect yourself with MagnaGrip, the easiest, most reliable exhaust removal system that features a true 100% seal to eliminate diesel exhaust fumes. To get free grant assistance, visit magnagrip.com